counted vote. Well, back here at our election headquarters, we've finally gotten Governor Reagan over that 50% hurdle he's been holding on to for most of the evening in the popular vote across the country. With 68% of the vote counted now, he's gone to 51% of the vote. And Jimmy Carter has dropped to 42% of the vote from the 43 he was holding. 6% of the vote going to John Anderson, as you see. Across the United States, though, where we show Jimmy Carter's states that he's won in red, you see there aren't many there, just 6 of them altogether. And for Reagan, well, it's a different story. They're shown in blue, and this country is almost solidly in the Reagan colors tonight. In the electoral vote, there's where the count really shows up. Reagan, 424 electoral votes, and Jimmy Carter, 45 electoral votes. There's a good question to be asked, I think, tonight. It's about time, that time of the evening, when we begin to look into this sort of thing. We maybe don't have answers yet. That'll have to be examined even more closely, but we've got some horseback opinions, I'm sure, as to why the polls over the weekend showed 2 and 3 percentage vote spread, maybe a little more than that in some of the more drastic ones, but nobody predicting an electoral sweep anything like this. Close electoral vote it looked like. I wonder if any of our astute correspondents here have a quick answer to that one. I toss it up for grabs.
I think there were 2 things about the polls, Walter. In the first place, they were showing Reagan gaining. And in the second place, if his percentage holds at 52% and doesn't go to what is commonly called a landslide at 60%, you don't need to have a huge popular vote. His vote is wide, but not necessarily very deep. He hasn't taken a lot of states by huge margins, at least not so far.
Well, I suppose, Walter, that all of those people had been undecided for so long in the big states all went for Ronald Reagan tonight. It's kind of difficult across the South to analyze what went wrong in so many different groups, because Jimmy Carter did poorly in all groups except for blacks and Hispanics. He had a worse time of it this year with all groups, young, old, various incomes, in town, out of town, than he did in 1976. He just got whomped.
Leslie, you got an idea?
Yeah, Walter, you have to believe that it was what someone in the White House said, that it was, in fact, the hostages at the last minute. That here there was this break, but he didn't seem to be able to do anything about it at all. He looked impotent once again in the foreign affairs area. You know, this whole thing broke late. There's no question about that, I don't think. And what was the factor? It just stared us right in the face. It was Jimmy Carter flying back to Washington and then having to go out again to campaign. Just totally unable to do anything with this issue, reminding us that it's been there for a year and that he was totally incapable of moving us. I just do feel that in the end, the switch of votes was because of that one issue.
That's obviously a terribly subjective thing on the part of the population. However, I think everybody would have to admit there's really nothing that the president could have done about it in those last 72 hours to further the situation. I mean, he couldn't accede to all of the requests and get them back. It may take weeks and months to do that. Henry Kissinger is suggesting tonight, just for instance, that he thinks that Reagan being in the White House will help get them back, and he bets they'll get back shortly after the inaugural. Well, that's still some time. That means that Henry Kissinger must be thinking in terms of long negotiations in order to put this package together.
So, Walter, when you say why did Jimmy Carter win, I think, first of all, I don't know that it's been said here tonight, that we should acknowledge that Ronald Reagan ran a smart, classy, high-road campaign. Not only did he fail to make a mistake, but he made a lot of the smart moves. Now, as we went along during the night making some notes, Jimmy Carter had no base or political message to offer the voters. Jimmy Carter, standing in the trial heats, consistently ran ahead of his job rating, and eventually the facts and his job rating caught up with him. Ronald Reagan used the debate to convince voters that he was not this mad Hollywood bomber from the West, that he was presidential, whether it was justified or unjustified. He convinced people of that in debates. Unemployment was the key issue all through this campaign, especially in the Midwest, where Jimmy Carter won only one state, Walter Mondale's home state, Minnesota. And then in the end, it was rejection of the party and the liberal orthodoxy that had been in the command through the 60s and the 70s. People simply wanted to change.
You know,
Lemon